the faster that you accept that things are not going to be the same, the quicker you're going to be able to adapt.
It's Thursday. We are live, and this is part of our daily drop-ins Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, which is earlier for Mandy. So get in here. I've got my good friend Mandy Flay with me, and Mandy got up a little early. She had to get an extra cup of coffee for us, right? You're not that. Yeah. It's not that early. We're joking about it, but it's really not that early. And here we are live. So I've got my phone out so I can see if we get anybody in here and some comments in here. It takes a little bit sometimes. So I see Megan already jumped in, and Adam. Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Adam. Good morning. Jumping in. If you are watching for the first time, you are live with us right now. But if you are listening on the Teach Better Talk podcast or watching on YouTube and you want to get in live, you got to get into the Facebook group. Go to teachbettergroup.com or search and Teach Better Team on Facebook to get in here so you can ask questions or make fun of Jeff or whatever. Good morning, Joe. So, Mandy, super excited to have you on. How are you doing this morning?
I'm okay. I'm doing good. Like, I'm getting to that spot where I'm a little bit tired of being, at home and trying to do all the things that I always say, practice gratitude, be positive,
yep. and I like how you say them that way.
I know. Well, sometimes I talk so. Like, how you like have conversations with yourself in your head, and I'll be like, you need to be positive. And my pandemic brain will be like, screw that. Like I don't want to be positive right now.
Shut up, positive brain.
I know, like nobody likes you right now. So otherwise I'm doing well. So
awesome.
How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm talking to you. This is great. We also got Brianne. Good morning, Brianne. Good morning, Holly. Good morning, Paul. Alex is in the house. Joe says, hey, Jeff and Mandy. Adam says, good morning. Alex says, good morning. It is chilly and foggy as I walk my dog, but always excited to listen and share. Alex is always in here with us. It's awesome. Even apparently he's out walking his dog and stuff. So it's always great. So I was sorry, I'm laughing at something else you said, but I was thinking before we do anything else, I want you to show everyone your coffee mug.
Okay.
Because I know there's a lot of people in the group that will really appreciate that. So you guys Hogwarts. Can see her Hogwarts.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite mugs for sure.
It's good.
I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so.
Gotcha.
Where the owl's located can be kind of painful when you're trying to hold it. I was going to say,
is it? Yeah, it can be a little weird, huh?
But it's worth it.
Just hold down a little bit. So I'm taking us back in time to when it was just the goodmethod.com here with this mug, one of the first ones I ever did. So Adam, good morning. Adam says his principal asked him to attend a principal meeting in her place this morning, so I'll be heading out soon. That's pretty cool, Adam. So don't screw that up, all right, buddy? Dave's watching. Yay. Dave Schmitto says, yay, two of my favorite people. Dave decided he wanted to start a war on Twitter yesterday by tweeting out about if you could end the pandemic by giving up one of the states. he says if you could give up, I can't remember exactly, if you could end the pandemic by giving up one of the United States, which one would it be and why Ohio? So because Dave's up in Michigan, so we goof. Well, some other folks like Lavana Roth and Neil Gupta came to Ohio's defense pretty quickly. I
can imagine Lavana.
Yeah, Lavana was all over it. So Megan says, OMG, I need that mug. Brianne says, love the mug and Mandy. Hashtag Match Family. Stacy, good morning to Stacy Benton. Teresa says, good morning. Adam says, OH. Joe says, yes, Jeff, new TBT coffee mugs. I do have Teach Better mugs. I just happened to grab the Grid Method one today, which we also have. Joe, I don't know if you've gotten on, but if you go to teachbetterswag.com, you can get the new mugs too. We have those up too. There's a few of them on there. We're working on more. Alex yells Ravenclaw. So
I'm a Gryffindor, and everybody's like, you're not a true fan if you always just choose Gryffindor. And I'm like, no, but I'm truly a Gryffindor. Like, I have taken every test out there on the internet that tells you which one you are, and I'm always Gryffindor. The Sorting Hat would put me in Gryffindor, I'm telling you.
I can confidently say that I've never taken a Harry Potter test in my life. I'm sure my wife has. My wife's a big Harry Potter fan. I've never read the books or whatever.
Oh my God, how are we even friends? How's that?
I know a lot of people respond to me that way, and it's typically just because.
Just all the time.
Well, yeah, I think what it really comes down to is if you were really honest with yourself and you compared Harry Potter and myself, that I come out cooler. So like that's why it's okay. I tip the scales. We're gonna move on. I don't agree with your face on that one. Anyway, so let's talk. So Mandy, if you could real quick, for anyone who doesn't know you and isn't connected with you already, can you just kind of give us the rundown on who is Mandy?
Yeah, sure. So I am a former elementary teacher and tech integrator and director of innovation and technology. And I recently retired from that. And now I consult full time. And interestingly enough, one of the things that I was consulting on prior to the pandemic was moving districts to like virtual learning, like starting virtual learning programs or starting virtual learning charter schools. So that transition has been super interesting. Working with some of the schools that I was working to prior in their programs or their charters and moving them entirely online. So that's been interesting.
Moving a little faster than planned, huh?
A little, yeah. And the funny thing is I was so glad that like if you don't know me, one of my focuses is mental health, and it's typically educator mental health is my big push, just because a lot of people push for addressing student mental health, and that's awesome. That's their arena. I kind of do the educator mental health because not as many people bring that to the forefront. So I have. It was one of the things that I heavily addressed with the districts when I was moving them to virtual learning. And I had an administrator say to me, when I said to him, you need to be very aware that you are going to have students who are home alone all day. And that feeling of like isolation and loneliness is going to be a problem. And he said, well, I would hope that we would never have kids home alone all day. Like there should always be a parent home with them. And they were talking about secondary school. And I thought, well, it's kind of, that's true. We would hope that, but it's not necessarily the case. And now we're in the spot where we're in. And I think of that we still do have kids home alone all day. Like if they have, medical professional parents, they're home. There's still lots of businesses that people are still working at that are considered essential. And so we're now in the spot that I was, saying, make sure that you address. And I hope that, I know that those schools took steps to do that. So I was happy that we were able to address that, in the beginning. So
I think there's a lot of kids that may have a parent or two at home that are still alone all day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's a situation, and it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. So, yeah. So how has that shifted? How did everything? Because everything kind of moved. Everything's moved pretty quickly here. I was talking to my brother, and he's like you look like 30, 45 days ago. He goes, we weren't talking about anything. Like nothing was a thing. And I'm like, yeah. And then it came. Chad and I were on our way to Chicago with one of our teammates, Kyle, to go we were doing a full team meeting. Everyone was coming to Chicago when like everyone else started closing, because Ohio had already, we were the first one to go, but. And like on our drive out, we're like just listening to like the world close down. It seemed like it was crazy, and it just came super fast. So like, how has that shifted your work and the consultant role? Like, now obviously you were already working with a few districts that were moving towards trying to make everything virtual. So I assume that just sped things up. But were there other ones that just sort of like panic and said, "Hey, we had to stop for a minute," or how have they reached out to you? Like, where has your role changed in that? I guess with most of the districts and people that you're working with.
It's been kind of a mix. And so it really depends a lot on, I think it depends a lot on how, I don't want to say how prepared they were to go virtual, but how maybe the departments have been able to wrap their mind around what's happening. So I have districts who just like stopped everything. Like we're in emergency mode right now.
Yep.
And I think everybody was kind of in emergency mode, but there's different levels of that. There's like freak out mode. There's like, hey, we got this mode. I've heard of districts just completely closing and saying whatever your grade was when we left is whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, there's just like a range of what's happened. And so I've had some districts who have been like, hey, we're just putting the brakes on for like 2 weeks, but we're going to, we might have to shift what we're doing, but we're definitely going to continue. And I've had districts just be like, we can't do this right now. And so it really depends on kind of how, I almost feel like how prepared they were for an emergency in general.
Sure.
Like, you have people who are able to handle emergencies very well, and you have people who maybe struggle with that kind of quick change. So kind of depends on that.
Yeah, that's how we felt too. It's been really interesting to see the different levels of, I don't know if I guess panic maybe is the way to go. I guess that's, for lack of a better term, panic, or different levels of just preparedness. Like I think is the right word of not that anyone could be really prepared for this, but more like how you were positioned, and then how could you move over and stuff. So it really has been kind of all over the spectrum on that. So it's been interesting. Alex says that Jeff is a Hufflepuff. I don't know what that means, but it sounds fun. I'm assuming it's not good. So
they're sweet and
don't lie to me. Adam says, I actually just brought this up to my principal inquiring about counseling for educators during this time. So important. Yeah, so important. Andrea's watching, says, hi, Jeff and Mandy, from Andrea and baby Luke. Hi, baby Luke.
Aw, baby Luke.
So he's watching too, and probably distracting mommy. That's okay. We get it. So, you told us a little bit about what you do and stuff like that, but you kind of forgot to mention that you're also an author a few times over. So let's talk real quick about that, if you don't mind, like about you have 2 books that have been out. It's 2, right?
Yep.
Not one I know about. And another one that's on its way, which I've got to read and is fantastic. So can you tell us about your first 2 and then give us a little preview of what's coming up?
Yeah. So my first
Sorry, I just got to jump. Megan just yelled, I'm a Hufflepuff. So if I'm with Megan, I'm good, Alex. So we're good. Sorry, go ahead.
So my first book is called The Fire Within, and it is it addresses, I put it out several years ago, and it was really in reaction to kind of watching educators around me be super overwhelmed and burnt out and all of those things, and not being able to talk about my own mental health issues because I was in the education profession. And some people had tried to start, talking about mental health in general by saying, we need to practice mindfulness and we need to practice self-care and stuff. And I believe all that. Like, it's not that I don't believe that. It's that we still aren't willing to talk about mental health issues when it comes to, to the education profession. So, we, and that was years ago. And I believe it's still true now. Like, we're comfortable saying, oh, you should be doing self-care. Although people who, don't normally do it are like, I don't have time for that. And you should be doing mindfulness. And most people are like, well, I don't really actually know how to do that. Like, people keep telling me to do it, but I don't know how. And, but we're still super uncomfortable with switching the conversation to what happens when an educator has depression, or what happens when, they have it and it's kind of, I would say, kind of flaring up and they're in the classroom with kids. What does that mean? And so my first book starts to kind of at least just bring the conversation to the forefront, and just kind of get the conversation started. My next one is a follow-up to my first book, which there was a kind of a book in between. But my next one's called Reignite the Flames. And since I started having those conversations, I've done a lot of research on the brain and body and stress and how that works. And I've also developed like several reasons why teachers become disengaged, that some of them are just like struggles, some of them are just kind of mental health stresses almost, and then some of them are just all out mental health issues. And I feel like the power in that is when we can name it, It's kind of the first step in healing. Like, oh, now we know what it is. Mm-hmm. And one of the kind of issues that I've seen out there in general is that everybody keeps saying teachers are burnt out, teachers are burnt out, teachers are burnt out. And there are a lot of teachers who are burnt out, but they're using burnout as a blanket term to cover everything that's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's not always the case. So, and my best example is, there's burnout, but then there's also demoralization. And they are two different things. They can look very similar, but there are two different ways to heal from them. Burnout, you like kind of in general, is to step back from what you're doing, do less. And demoralization is to find your identity and your passion as an educator again. And so like one, you're almost stepping back, one, you're stepping forward, but in a very, a very intentional way. And so if we keep saying everybody's burnt out, everybody's burnt out, everybody's burnt out, they're not actually healing from the thing that they may be disengaging from. And so that was sort of the purpose of the book that's coming out. The third book, Divergent EDU, is based on the hierarchy of needs for innovation and divergent thinking, which is an organizational structure I developed to support teachers in being more innovative and divergent thinkers. And a lot of people say to me, wow, that's two totally different topics. Like, why? Why do you write on tech and innovation when you also write on mental health? And I'm like, let's look at the mental health of our teachers and how it affects climate and culture, which is one of the things that affects innovation and divergent thinking. Mm-hmm. Like they're actually very related. And like a disengaged teacher is not going to, they're just not going to have the energy
Absolutely.
To be innovative.
Yeah. So you can't utilize that thinking if you're dealing with not knowing where you're going or feeling burnt out or anything like that. Yeah, it absolutely connects. So Meg says she's a Hufflepuff. I already said that. Dave says you two are an amazing distraction this morning. Thank you for being you. Alex wanted to clarify that his wife is a Hufflepuff. It is a good thing, and we'll talk more later. Stacy says thank you for addressing these issues in your books, Mandy. So important to be brought to the forefront. Brandy is watching with us now too. What else is Dave saying? So powerful. How do you remind educators right now who are feeling burnout that this too shall pass and they can thrive? So that's a good one, Mandy. Like, what are the conversations you're having now around that? Because I think it's a whole other layer, like another thing, and maybe it's burnout, maybe it's not, but it probably looks a lot like it. Are you having those conversations with educators now in this pandemic time? And then how do we remind them that this will pass, we can get back from this, and sort of what are those looking like for you, those conversations?
Yeah. So I actually just put a blog post out on this for EduMatch Publishing. So if you go to their blog, you'll find it, and it's got tips on how to address each level. But I'll be putting it out on my blog, the same one, next week. But actually, you can find, unfortunately, because of the pandemic, all of the reasons why you might disengage can be found within what's going on. And so, the reasons are professional adversity, personal adversity, burnout, demoralization, secondary traumatic stress, and teacher trauma. And so, from the standpoint of personal adversity, when I was writing the blog post and I was really thinking about it, I even started kind of going down the path of we might have teachers who are in abusive situations at home. We've talked a lot about kids and how the issue of abuse is growing right now because of just everybody being in one spot, and people have short fuses and everything is hard right now. But even from that standpoint, alcohol consumption, I'm sure, is up. I was in Walmart the one day and I was in the alcohol section because my husband wanted something, and a lady turned around to me and she said, "Why this stuff isn't on sale during a pandemic, I have no idea."
Oh, uh-oh. I think I just lost Mandy. But I loved where her story was going, so I'm going to get her back here very shortly, guys. She just jumped out real quick. So while she's coming back to us, And you guys let me know, like, I can't see Mandy now, so in case she's still there and somehow it's just me. But good morning, Carly. Adam's gotta go. Adam, I'll see you soon. Megan, I love it. It's so true. All you hear is teacher burnout. There are so many layers and so many pieces, and it isn't all burnout. Such an important issue to talk about. Thank you, Megan. It's absolutely true. The blog is edumatch.com. Is it Edumatch? I'm gonna figure that out real quick. Edumatch Publishing. So it's edumatchpublishing.com is the addition there. Yep, I'm gonna try and get Mandy back. I know that she's not there right now. I'm guessing it's just that good old Wisconsin internet right now. So we'll get her back really quick. Oh, here she comes. Oop. Yep, there she is. We got you back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The internet's been so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all right. We got everyone. I wanted to make sure you were gone, and somehow it wasn't like that. I just couldn't see you, but everyone else. So we're back. We're back. Megan just commented that she loves it. It's so true. All you hear is teacher burnout. There are so many layers and so many pieces, and it isn't all burnout. Such an important issue. So she's agreeing with what you were going there. Joe was asking for the spot. I'm getting a whole bunch of hearts now that you're back. Alex says, huzzah. So she's back. Guys, if you're watching, Ray just shared the link there, edumatchpublishing.com. That's where you can find. Mandy does they have a lot of great writers over there, so that's a great place. Brienne says, yeah, she's back. Okay, so you're in the liquor store because your husband needed something. And the woman turns to you and says, I can't believe that this stuff isn't on sale during pandemic.
Yeah, and she's like, do they understand how badly we need this right now? Like I didn't know this woman at all, but she needed the alcohol very badly. And but it really does, like when you think about personal adversity, just some of the things going on at home, either from that standpoint or from having family members that pass away or are sick with the virus or something like that, and then kind of all of those pieces can be hit, even right down to teacher trauma. And I had just spoken on another podcast about this, that we're going to be going back to school at some point. Nobody really knows when yet. We're going to be going back, and there's a chance that when we go back, some of our staff members are missing, or some of our students are missing, or some of our students have family members that are missing. And the strange thing about the pandemic is that nobody is really going to get closure on that, because like you don't really meet with your staff right now. Like if you are working, like even if you're on a call, you're not going to get that closure of when someone passes. And so my hope is that districts recognize that and work towards making sure that the community is whole as possible emotionally before they start moving on to content. So in the blog post, I give tips for dealing with that. I mean, it's everything from the usual self-care to making sure that if you're dealing with secondary traumatic stress and you're really, really super worried about your students who are going through trauma at home, that you learn to compartmentalize, because you can only control what you can control. And so there's some tips on there for getting through that stuff.
Yeah, it's you mentioned the just not having the closure stuff. I actually had a great aunt pass away just 2 weeks ago now, and it was sort of a blessing in a sense. She was not doing well, and she hadn't been doing well for a long time and stuff, and she lived a long life and all those things, but it was kind of weird because it's almost like it hasn't necessarily happened, even though it happened, because we didn't get to go do anything. And fortunately my grandparents, my grandfather's sister, they were able to do a very small ceremony, but like he couldn't go because he's just at too much risk. Like they didn't want to risk, my parents went, but we just stayed in the car and listened from the car. It's just such a weird, and I've talked to a few people that had similar things that you don't have that closure. You can't console your loved ones. You can't hug, right? You just got to rely on calling and talking through it and stuff. And it's just a really weird time. And then there's, you got a lot of people that are, like you said, coming back in the fall who have experienced that and didn't get to have any of that, right? And they haven't had that, that support the same way. And so there's going to be this, we've been talking a lot about the gaps that are going to be formed in the content, but there's also going to be a lot of emotional gaps that are being formed right now that we're going to have to address whenever we get back. Whether we get back fully in the classroom, whether we get back fully virtual? What do we get back? Blended, whatever it looks like. We really need to look at those things. So super important there. So, yeah. So, let's talk about the alcohol thing. Is funny to me because I it's been funny watching. I'm realizing wow, there's a lot of people who don't like their spouse or their kids. This is interesting. For me, I've always worked at home, so this isn't. There's a lot of pieces of this that isn't a big change. It's kind of weird that I can't leave, which is not good. Mm-hmm. But also, I have my kids home all day. My wife's still considered essential, so she's working most days, and then my kids are home. So I've got a few more interruptions than I normally do, and stuff like that. And I've felt stressed at times with it, but then I also realized I'm like, yeah, but I'm getting to spend more time with my kids than I ever normally do, which is great. Mm-hmm. I don't hate them. I don't get mad at them. That's great. And so I guess mine's different because my wife still works, so that she can still like me. So that's good. But she hasn't went to the liquor store yet. So that's plus. So I'm glad that's the case. So what? How are you? I want to ask you. How are you doing at home? How is it? How are you guys in your household dealing with everything? Is it business as usual, or the things that you're struggling with, or that you've had to adjust very differently, or what's that look like for you? Is everyone home?
Well, most everybody is home except for my oldest son, who's in college and has his own place. And so my second oldest son he was a freshman in college this year, and so he actually came home because they kicked them out of the dorms almost right away. And so it's been a little different from the standpoint of, and they're older and they can do their own thing and they can go into a room, which I can't even imagine having little kids right now. I cannot imagine it. And trying to get my work done, because even just the feeling of having them home feels like I should be on vacation, And so Angela Myers had posted something on Facebook yesterday that I thought was so funny. She said, it's like I have these waves of motivation. Like the first day I'm super motivated. The second day I'm like half motivated. The third day I've got no motivation at all. And I feel like I'm living a lot in that third day. I'm trying so hard. And
there are a whole bunch of people watching right now and listening who just went, "Oh God, thank God, it's not just me."
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who said to me the other day, she's like, "You're always killing it," and I'm like, "What? Have you even looked at me lately? Half the time I don't shower. I don't even know what you're talking about." So I don't. I think that's pretty normal to be lacking that motivation. And there was an article that I read the other day that was basically discussing how actually exhausting being isolated is, the self-isolation is, and the quarantine. And so, I think I had recently wrote a blog post too about giving yourself grace and forgiving yourself for all the things that you can't do right now. Because they're just really, in the grand scheme of things, we can only do the best that we can, and trying to force something else out just isn't going to end well. So, it's been interesting at home, but it's been good too. I mean, there are things, I had put a Facebook post or a Twitter post out a couple weeks back that was like, what's something that, you're going to continue, something that needs to continue after the quarantine, because the whole idea of just stopping and looking at people and remembering who they are, and not, having a discussion that doesn't involve go do this, has been a pretty powerful part of being kind of trapped.
Yeah.
With people.
It's interesting. So, with my wife working, and with me being in the field of education, that first 2 to 3 weeks of my kids, I was just so high strung, stressed out, trying to make sure that they were, I was attacking everything properly for their school and the schedules and all this stuff. And I was just burning myself to death. And one day she was leaving. She's like, "Okay, so now it's okay if school isn't perfect today. It's okay. And you've got to work." So and I've been also, it's a lot of a lot more screen time than normal, and we're pretty relaxed with that normally, but and I just feel like it's weird, you talk about them being home, you feel like you're on vacation. For me, it's they're home, so I feel like I shouldn't be working, even though I should be. So then I feel bad because I'm like, well, go do that. And I'll check on you in a little bit because I've got to get work done. And then I'm like, am I being a bad parent? And it's just this over and over again. It's
Yep.
crazy. Dave says the struggle was real. 4 kiddos on my hip. Love them, but Joe says, yes, my 2 boys are thankful. Thankful every day when mommy comes home. And Brienne said it's fun with little ones. They are only wrestling like 20 times a day. The 4-year-old enjoys yelling during conference calls. Yes.
Yeah.
So my 2 are great. My daughter's in kindergarten. My son's in 2nd grade. They've been fantastic as far as allowing me to work almost, most days and when I'm on calls and stuff like that. So, but it's definitely a struggle for me. One of the biggest things, like, it's weird because like, a lot of my neighbors are like doing a lot of things around the house. Like, I got all this time and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm working more than I ever have, I think, because we upped our game as far as support and stuff. And for me, I'm like, and they're like, it's not big of a change for you. You've always been virtual working at home. I said, yeah, but the difference is like I've always had the freedom to go if I needed to, and now I can't.
Right.
And also because I've worked at home, worked from myself for so long, that I've gotten pretty good at knowing when I need to go somewhere. So when I wake up, I'm like, all right, today's a day where I'm not going to focus at home. I need to go work at a coffee shop or something. And I can't do that. So now when I wake up and I feel, I'm like, too bad. Like, and so mentally it's me, it's sort of this not having to control that I think is so mentally exhausting for everyone. It's like, it's not just that I don't get to stay home. It's I have to stay home, right?
Right,
like,
right.
Even people who maybe were in a good position, like, they have a lot of savings, or maybe they're able to work, but they're not working nearly as much, but they're still getting a salary. They've been fortunate. They're still like, but like, I don't get a say in this. Like, I have to stay home. I don't get to go. Like, I'm someone like I really enjoy like going to the grocery store because I get to get out, walk, and see people because I'm usually trapped here in my dungeon working. But like right now, like it just makes more sense for Amy to stop because she's already out, and so like I didn't drive. I didn't get my car for like 2.5 weeks, and like stuff like that. So it's been an interesting change. So.
Well, I was furious at my husband the other day because I woke up and I was so excited to go to Walmart. We had to grocery shop, and like I'm like, oh my God, I get to grocery shop. And I hate grocery shopping more than anything. I'm like, oh my God, I get to go to Walmart. I'm so excited I get to go to Walmart. And I had to do a conference call. And when I got off the call, I'm like, all right, what does everybody need from Walmart? Tell me everything you need because I'm going to spend as much time there as possible to get out of the house. And they're like, Mom, Dad's already at Walmart. And I'm like, what?
No, he's not.
You're kidding me.
That's great. Make a Target list. Let's go. What do we need? We need furniture. Yeah, we need furniture. Let's go. Yeah. Yeah, same thing. Carly says, thank you guys for keeping it real. It's hard. I'm glad that I'm not the only one. She says guilt trips are hard. Joe says, yes, Jeff, I'm going through the same thing. It's gotten better. Went fishing with my boys yesterday and didn't worry about school. That's great. Glad to hear that, Joe. Andrea said, it's so hard, but so great at the same time. I love being home with my 7-month-old because he's starting to crawl and pull himself up, so I'm not missing any of those first. But he makes simple work tasks a lot harder. Yeah.
That part's great. Yeah.
Just saw a video of I think it was yesterday, she posted, she's like, calm down, kid. You're only 7 months old. He's pulling himself up. Yeah, it's tough. And you got people who, I know several people who were fortunate enough to be able to transition to virtual, so they still have their job, but it's so different, and some of them still have to work a lot. They have to be clocked in for 8 hours. Some have more leeway, so it's so different. So like, we're all going through the same thing, but also all going through very different things. So it's a lot of this grace of giving yourself grace, giving each other grace, but trying to like find these little things that we can connect on and be like, yeah, like you're not alone. Like I'm struggling with that too. With different situations or whatever, but we're all dealing with this, together. It's really, really tough. And
I think everything just takes a lot longer as well. Like, I know that I have teenagers at home, but my one daughter talks all the time. Like she talks nonstop. Oh my gosh. And so, and so I'll be working and she'll just come in and like rattle something randomly off. I mean, it could be anything from something her friend said to, the fact that like she was on like the leadership committee for National Honor Society and like all these other kinds of things. So she was the one responsible for prom and post prom and like all that stuff's canceled now, and they're trying to figure it out. And so she'll come in and she'll start rattling stuff off for me, and then to me about that, or it might be something about a TV show she's watching, and I'll be on a call, or I'll be like in the middle of trying to write or something like that. And even when you have to take that attention away for a second and then get back in, that takes some time. So I think everything just takes a lot longer to get accomplished on top of it.
Yeah. Brian, good morning. Brian Gerst joining us, just comment. He said, I got to go out to help put together signs for our seniors' yards yesterday, which is awesome that I'm seeing more and more schools do stuff like that. I forgot how much I missed my old path to school in neighborhoods, the old familiar sites. It's crazy. Like how much you miss just driving from your car to Walmart, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I really miss being able to get in my car and listen to whatever, or do, drive through, like there's neighborhood stuff. I hope there's a lot of appreciation that comes out of all this.
Yeah.
I'm appreciating the people that you didn't get to see, and stuff like that. It's been one thing I have noticed, and this is, which I hope it carries on, is a lot of people who are upset and doing Zoom calls with people that they never saw anyway. I miss my family so much. I'm like, oh, when's the last time you hung out with them before the pandemic? A year and a half ago, like with cousins. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, it's awesome that you're now connected. But people who are like, but it's this thing of like, I can't connect with anyone. I can't have that interaction. So now I'm going to try and interact. So I'm hoping that there's some of these relationships that are being reignited, dare I say, right? And more reappreciated, right? And re-energized to remind us that people are really important in our lives. And so we're reaching out. So that's good. Sorry, I'm laughing at my comment there. So I wanted to ask, so as we get closer, where do you think, Joshua Stamper asked me this the other day. It's been really cool. I've been doing the mailbag episodes on his Aspire Leadership podcast. And one of the things he asked me the other day was what I think is going to, what the impact's going to be when we get back into things. When we get back to normal, what's going to change? How is this going to affect and change education for the good or bad? And so I'm going to throw that at you. Like, how do you think this is going to do? What do things look like? Let's assume that the positive side, that we get this thing under control and we're able to get back, and they say, hey, you're able to go back to school, whether we're doing social distancing, which is most likely what's going to happen and stuff too. What do you think is the biggest changes that are going to occur when we get back to things, when we try to get back to whatever the new normal is?
Yeah. So I have been asked this a lot, actually. I just had this conversation with the ANA guys, and because I think that people are starting, once they started talking with politics and stuff about getting back and opening back up and all that kind of stuff, whether you agree with it or not, it's still that kind of light at the end of the tunnel, right? Sure. Like you can start to see it. And so I think we're starting to switch from okay, we know the kind of disaster we're in right now. What is it going to look like when we go back? Mm-hmm. And I think in terms of I guess I kind of relate it back to resiliency. The faster that you accept that things are not going to be the same, the quicker you're going to be able to adapt to what the new normal is. Mm-hmm. And and a lot of I've heard people say, well, resilience is bouncing back to the person that you were before, but that's not what resilience is. Resilience is actually being happy with the person that you become after you go through an adversity, right? And so it's going to be that almost that kind of same idea. We are never going to be the same. There's mm-hmm. going to be things that are different. There's going to be things that change from this. There are going to be people that recognize the value of online learning are going to be like, oh my gosh, I could totally do a blended model with this. And that would make sense. And then there's going to be other people that are like, I'm so tired of the way things have changed that I'm leaving education. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes, but, and I'm not sure I know how things are going to look. I'm hoping that, I feel like there's going to be I'm hoping that there's some changes that a lot of us have been talking about for a really long time. People are saying, oh, this new way of online learning. Nope. It's been going on for years and years and years. People have been doing online learning for years and years and years. And on the flip side of that, I'm hoping that people don't look at the way that everybody's doing online learning right now and saying, oh, that's the right way to do it. Because right mm-hmm. now we're just kind of in that, I think, who is it that, was it Philip Pulley or something coined the term educational triage? We're doing the best we can with the resources we have right now. So there's kind of those two sides of the coin. I think there's people who are going to go back and say, wow, it really is the SEL stuff and the relationship piece and I just want to hug my students today and make sure that they're okay. That is the most important thing. And then there's going to be the flip side of that where we have some people go back and say, oh my gosh, we've lost so much content. We need to push ahead as quickly as we can. And so I'm not sure how it's going to look, but I do know that it's going to look different. And the quicker we can accept that, the quicker we can adapt to the new normal.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it, is accepting that so that we can adapt and do whatever we can to do the best we can. I think I'm with you. I'm really hoping that some of the things that are having spotlight shined on now are being forced, to the forefront, and these conversations continue. Things like, around how can we actually utilize, online learning or blended learning, these tools that we maybe fought before that now we're surviving with.
Mm-hmm.
How we utilize those to be more efficient, more effective in the classroom, whether we go full back, back to full physical classrooms or blended or whatever it is. And then, conversations around, like you said, like the SEL and the connections and, things around equity and talking about that, like these things are all being highlighted right now. I really hope, my hope is that one of the positives that we can pull out of this whole thing is that those conversations continue and actually continue and really continue to be highlighted, so we can start solving those when we're not in, like you said, like a triage mode, right?
Right.
Right now we can only attack the equity issues that are being brought because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get back to normal, hopefully we're still focused on, okay, well, if we attack the equity issues that have always been there, then the equity issues we have to attack when we get into triage isn't as bad, and we can address it faster. Just like if we are utilizing the technology that's available and using it to best suit our styles and focusing on our kids' emotions and all these different things, and we do that normally, then when a pandemic hits, we're in a better spot to do that.
Right.
Like at the very beginning, right? Then we're one of those schools or one of those teachers that was better prepared for the thing that none of us could be prepared for. And I think that's a big piece. I'm interested to see how much of what we are being forced to use right now continues to be used in the classroom, obviously in a different way, but we're seeing some of these things. So interested to see how that goes. And hopefully those conversations stay at the forefront as we get back to normal and stuff. So,
and I've been really glad to see the equity discussion start to expand a little bit, because this is one of the conversations that I kind of had with when I was working with the virtual programs and the virtual charter schools, is that like there's more of a gap in area, like, so all the tech departments, right? Like usually I'm working with like tech departments or tech integrators or something like that. And they'll be like, well, yeah, the equity of what devices students have, or the equity to, of the discrepancy between who has Wi-Fi and who doesn't. Yeah, that is inequity. True. Like that is it. But there's also the inequity of the student who has to work from home, who doesn't have breakfast or lunch. And there's also the inequity of the parent who has a third grade education and who struggles reading and trying to helping that student, and the parent who has a doctorate and is trying to help the student and is a fluent reader. So like there's a problem with that. There's the inequity of the student who has to babysit their brothers and sisters all day because single mom is working, and and the student who has two parents who are at home and maybe work from home all the time, so are accustomed to it and are able to help them through what they're supposed to do. There's even an inequity in when you assign project-based learning tasks and what access they have to crayons and paper and that kind of stuff, And so, like, yes, there is inequity in the technology, but the inequity goes
so much deeper
beyond that.
Yeah.
And one of the school districts I work with on a regular basis is the Philly school district, and like, they just started. They didn't really even know what to do. They just started handing out devices, and like they're like, well, one of the cable companies is offering internet for their parents and that kind of thing, but who knows if the parents are even going to call and get it? Like you can't. There are certain things you can't guarantee, And so you would like to think that people do a certain thing, but you can't guarantee that happens. And so it's brought some of those conversations to the forefront. And like you said, that's been there all the time.
Yep.
And so I hope that those kind of conversations continue, and that the equity issues expand from the whole, just who has a device and who doesn't.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what the home environment. When we're able to bring them into our classroom, we at least give them a controlled, stable environment for the time they're with us.
Right.
And they go back to it. They've always gone back to that, and we have no idea. Like, they might have a great environment at home or not for a million different reasons. You labeled off a bunch of them, right?
Yep.
There's so many different reasons that it could be, but now it's completely different because now, like you said, I think the great point is you can offer our local school district here is great with one-to-one. They were able to offer any kid who needs it, multiple devices to households if needed, everything like that. But if the parent never goes up and gets it, or the student's able to get it but doesn't know how to use it, right? It doesn't even know how to read, right? Things like that. Like you said, if the parent either has to work and can't help, or it has struggles with themselves and can't help, or doesn't care and can't help, there's a million different ways, right? Yep. Or is just so frustrated and stressed about it that they can't help. Like, there's so many reasons why it's really important. And the important piece to remember is that stuff's, like you just said, is always there. Mm-hmm. We just don't see it as much because we see the kid in class, and so I think that's where, like, that you said, that SEL piece as well, and the connection. I think those conversations, I really hope continue to stay in the forefront when we get back to a stable ground where we can attack them better, and address them in a better way. So
I even thought about my daughter, who she has a Chromebook through the school, and the Chromebook stopped working. And so she's like, oh, I'm so angry. I don't know when the school's fixing things. I don't know how to bring it in. Like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And she handed it to me, and I, being a former tech director, pressed a couple of buttons, and I'm like, here you go, it's working. And I could do that because I had the skill set to be able to fix it without having to send it in. Yep. But other families who don't have that resource and are going to have to then think about all of the things that she started to freak out about. Like, I don't know how to get this fixed. I don't know. Yep. And there are some families who would be like, I'm not dealing with it. They're just not doing their work.
Yeah.
So, and kind of, Alex said, my neighbor works with an internet company, has told me so many families are still without access because they don't call back or send in the prepaid postcard because they're afraid they're going to get charged later. Yeah, that's like a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
And it's that whole lack of trust in the community and what they're willing to provide. So, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So I think that's a big piece. And then we talk about the SEL piece and the gaps. Like, it's not just our students and our teachers, it's our community. There's a lot of things we got to focus on and do with our community. And like you just mentioned, is a great, connection to the fact that the importance of having that communication and that family mentality with your community at all times, especially the people that might have had a negative experience with you or might have hardships at home and stuff like that, just making sure that they know that you're there for it. Yeah. It's, interesting. I was having a conversation, two doors down, my neighbor is an art teacher, and just before they closed down, he was getting ready to move into, like claymation, like clay art. He's like, so all my lessons for the next, several weeks are all about that. He goes, I can't expect my kids to have clay at home because I don't know if they have glue or crayons or pencils or paper or anything. So we actually work together. And he's doing a lot of, he's doing like all the rest of his lessons are just all around creativity and thinking through art. And he's allowing them to do projects and have fun with just anything they can find. So literally, like, nothing, there is no requirement. You can use a rock. You can use blades of grass, stuff like that. So, but it's adjustment. It's like, I don't even know if they have tape. I don't know if, you can't assume any of that because you have no idea. And so hopefully those conversations will continue. I think those are really important. So
yeah.
Yes. Anyway. Okay. I've kept you long enough. We're going to let you go. I really appreciate you coming on. Appreciate everyone commenting. Thank you so much. Hold on. Dave's commenting real quick. I'm educated and I might be a little fast and loose with the word educated there, Dave. Sorry. I'm educated and an educator, but I'm struggling too, just trying to balance my work with theirs. If I feel like things are not 100% clear for my kids, teachers, I'm so tempted to just throw my hands up. I can't imagine how others are managing. Yeah, that's a good point. It is. It's tough. So we need to keep those conversations going. We need to remember that when we get back to things with the other parents that we're working with. So, but I appreciate all the comments, everyone chiming in. Really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you, Mandy, in all the time, but today a little bit extra, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you too.
Andrea said, "This is great. You guys are awesome. Thank you." For those of you listening on podcast or watching on YouTube, if you want to get in the comments and be here live with us, you got to get into the private Facebook group. You can search Teach Better Team on Facebook. It'll come up, or go to teachbettergroup.com. These are happening every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time. So make sure you get in here and get in the conversation. You can connect with other educators in here as well. The group's just an awesome place regardless. Make sure you check out Mandy, and I'm going to throw your stuff up real quick. I think I have it here. So if you don't already follow Mandy, there's her Twitter handle, and you can go to mandyfairlick.com. You can also go to edumatchpublishing.com and find Mandy there as well as a whole bunch of other awesome people. So that's how you can connect. Definitely think you should connect with her. It's one of the best things I've ever done. Oh, I know. It's true, though. I laugh after it, but it's true. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. You guys, thank you so much. If you need anything, make sure you're letting us know and keep talking to us, letting us know what you need, and we will continue to do everything we can to provide you with that, with blogs over at teachbetter.com. We got a bunch of downloads on that. New courses going up on teachbetteracademy.com. And we're working on some other things to be rolling out soon with more training, more content and stuff. So keep telling us, keep talking to us. Good morning, Kristen. I see you sneaking in there. So appreciate all of you. Mandy, I appreciate you. Everyone have an amazing day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Ray is live here tomorrow morning, dropping in with Tyler Overstreet from Newsella. Tyler is just an awesome guy. You don't want to miss that. It's going to be a good time. So make sure you check back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll see you then. Appreciate all you.
Yeah, bye, everyone.